it would seem that my body weight has stabilized. So now I am a flat, carb depleted 256. Which frankly is honestly kind of fucking nuts, considering the last bulking phase, as big and full and like holding as much water as possible on some of my heaviest days, I was only 4 pounds heavier. So that is a good sign for me. But now I'm at that point where instead of just a rapid loss, because that's more than a pound a day, because I've only been in a deficit for about, well, I don't know. The end of the bulk wasn't at 272. I was kind of bounced down to like 268 or so. So really it's only a 13-pound drop of carbs and intramuscular water as such. But still, 13 pounds. That's so now that's completed, right? Right now I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit more stable. So what that tells me is I'm actually going to begin a much more steady fat loss progression starting here on out, instead of just an immediate weight-based crash, which is pretty much how any bulking and dieting phase is going to go. You can ease into it, but no matter what, your first few weeks of bulking up, or maybe week, 2 weeks, something along those lines, you should see a pretty rapid weight gain. I mean, if I were to just suddenly flip this over and say, okay, let's just keep bulking again, and I started eating in a surplus again, I would immediately gain 10 pounds back in like a week, just from being full of carbs and, well, kind of carbs and water mixed together, your muscle glycogen. But all that's to say is those 10 pounds, which I guess you could probably say, maybe, I don't know if there's a correct kind of number for it, but it's basically 5% of my lean body weight can fluctuate purely based on how many carbs and fucking intramuscular stuff I've got that given day. So those first 10 pounds, I didn't really lose much weight at all. I'm just simply holding less intramuscular water. So the real progress of getting leaner has only just barely begun. But my understanding has always been, if I want to gain weight, right, if I want to be consistently getting heavier week by week, bigger, stronger, everything else, maximizing my recovery to over recover and actually build muscle, then I want to be full of carbs reasonably perpetually, right? Maybe have like a back off day and then a refeed, whatever, but for the most part, when I'm big and full, that's when I'm going to be growing. And dieting down, what's the point of being full of fucking carbs? Every lift, I'm just going to be running through my glycogen stores, which I'm still going to do now, of course. But it's when you're in that flat, depleted state that I feel you're going to have the most actual lipolysis. Right? So that's basically the fancy term for fat burning, So that's where, if you're good for 2 days, right? Let's say you looked up online, like your maintenance calorie calculator or whatever, and you found out, okay, I need to eat 2,200 calories if I want to lose 2 pounds a week or a pound a week or whatever. Sure. If you stick to that for 2 days, you're good, right? Your glycogen stores are not depleting, because that's basically what you're going to run through first. Your sugar, right? Basically any carb is a much easier energy source to use than your body fat is. So, and if you want to start burning body fat, you have to be basically running on empty of that easy carb-based fuel. You know what I'm saying? So if you have 2 good days of dieting, but then 2 days of you just went fucking nuts, you had 500 grams of carbs from bagels and ice creams and treats and everything else, that's going to counteract those 2 days. And frankly, you can probably counteract a full, well, almost a full week of good dieting, like Monday through Saturday, deficit, no cheating, no nothing. But if you go crazy on Sunday, like if you go way too fucking crazy, then you're just going to refill yourself, and now all of that work to stay in a deficit has been counteracted because you just overate and went over your deficit goals. Now, that's not to say you can't have the occasional off day. I mean, whenever I'm dieting down, usually I don't plan it. It just kind of ends up being like, okay, if I'm extra kind of fatigued one day down the line, maybe month and a half, 2 months away from right now, then, or especially if it's like after a leg day and I can tell I'm extra sore, more than normal, that might be my cue to say, okay, I'm a little under recovered here. This might be a good little refeed day. Get my appetite working up again. Get a little bit of extra recovery from having some new, just some extra energy in my system, and then go from there. But to have a cheat day or a refeed day beyond what is actually necessary and useful is just actually cheating on your diet. And the craziest part about dieting is, or at least the coolest part, is there's no getting around it. Right? If you don't actually stick to it, if you don't actually stay under certain caloric intake goals, then you're never going to lose body fat. And frankly, that's almost, well, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. It depends on the person, right? Because some guys have an easy time eating a lot of food and bulking up. Some guys have a bit of a harder time putting on any body mass, right? The hard gainer, or as I like to say, the hard eater. But it's just kind of the nature of it, right? But I kind of feel like bulking up is a little easier for... No, actually, that's not true. For me, dieting down is much easier. But I didn't used to think that. When I was like, 200 something, the low 200s, bulking was a lot easier. But now that I'm getting a little heavier, it's getting harder to put more fucking weight on. So the dieting phase is where I have the most, I guess you could say, the least difficulty making my progress. But all that's to say, probably within the month. No, actually, all right. So today's Friday. So Sunday, I'll go through another little check-in, run through all the mandatory lat spread, side chest sort of poses. And then every other Sunday, or no, every Sunday after that, I'll do it again. So I have something to compare my baselines to. But plan for tonight's lift with back. We know the drill, honestly. And there's a reason why I'm not going to be doing any heavy, or really basically any just bent over barbell rows. And it comes down to two fucking, a couple of fucking words. I don't know how many exactly. But stimulus to fatigue as well as isolation. Because, it's a good movement, of course. Right? I'm really loading my whole back, top to bottom, traps to rhomboids to erectors. Right? I get a crazy fucking back pump. The issue is, I'm using my glutes, I'm using my hamstrings. It's kind of a hard fucking movement to do. I'm going to be extra winded afterward. Whereas, if I were to just sit on like a chest supported row and really just focus on my kind of upper back, lats, traps, rhomboids, everything, and not spend a lot of energy or give myself a new oxygen demand from like burning out my glutes and my hamstrings, plus the feeling of having to really brace to even hold up that weight, it just doesn't make as much sense, And then taking that a level further, if you've got a crew of guys where the back days at your gym are typically started with a deadlift max, be it 1 rep or going for like a 5 rep PR or something. I'm not going to say it's not going to work. Guys with big deadlifts usually have fucking big backs, but just try to look at the actual value of it for you specifically. Because frankly, I'm going to have a much better back pump spending my time on pull downs and chest supported rows and, doing some single arm cable stuff. Plus the amount of energy I'm going to spend doing that per, I guess you could say the ROI of fucking energy to pump and back stimulation, I think on the machines is really where it's at. The argument between cables and free weights and machines and everything else, I think for me, back, I lean much more towards the cable and machine side of things. Whereas, something like biceps, frankly, I have a little bit better time with probably just purely dumbbells and cables. The machines don't necessarily do it for me as much because usually bicep machines twinge my my forearms a little bit. And half of that is just, it's not like machines are bad in general for biceps. It's just for me specifically, I've got like I've got a little camber to my arms and stuff. So if I'm doing a machine preacher curl and it's right here in front of me, I end up kind of pinching my forearm a little bit. That's just a me thing. So that's where, right, figure out your best approach for your specific build. Go at it like a maniac, and then pose down in the mirror, take your progress pictures, say, holy shit, go back home, eat, and rest and repeat. But no more chatting. Let's get in there and start with something. Couldn't tell you exactly. Pull down, row, pull over. I guess we'll both find out. I've been on a lighter squeezing kick for a while, and something about these warm-up movements today. Like if I sat with 3 plates, or even two, well, two might be a little light. But if I sat here with three, I get like a full second hold, slow, kind of eccentric. But I want to make this one a little heavier. Sue me. But this will be good. And then afterward, I'll drop the weight and do more of a squeezing one, right? I just know that this is going to feel like a good starter. And sure, I mean, I can't explain it with any kind of study, but, you know, I'm going to get more out of a 3-plate incline barbell bench than it would out of 2 plates. I mean, sure, I could do the 2 plates for I don't know how many reps, but I do feel you need a certain amount of mechanical tension to actually induce growth. Plus, when you're not going to get big just sitting here with only pure, like 2 plates squeezing reps, I just don't see it. Now, of course, I'm not taking away the value of it. I'm just trying to propose a good mix. Left side first. Okay. Okay. One more, same way. Then I'll change it up. Okay. Whew. Let's switch to a more upper back focus row. This will be a good heavy one. But this machine is fancy because it's not like a regular seated row, because the weight actually gets lighter at the top, just because it's got all sorts of a little bit of a leverage. So even though I'm like gonna be close to failure, I'll still be able to pull it all the way up here and get a complete squeeze, because it's way easier to get a complete squeeze with lighter weight, but I'll still get a heavy stretch as the weight gets heftier down here, to the point where I'll probably just fail a rep out of nowhere because I won't be able to pull it back. It's like this is almost closer to like a fucking squat. Nobody's doing partial reps of squats, right? You do 1, you do 2, you do 3, and then when you fail, that weight isn't coming back up. Okay. Ooh. One more. A little lighter. Whew. Oh my God, okay. Whew. That was a good one. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, that was 2 sets of that underhanded row, which were pretty lat focused, but still mid back, right? I mean, that's not the same lat squeeze that I get on like a pull down. So today's back day almost looked like middle of the back, then now more upper back trap focused. So I think I have a plan for the next 3 sets because I want to hit my whole back. I want top, bottom, middle, side to side, totally pumped, right? I don't want to do just like a lat only day or like an upper back trap focus day. Like back is back, I think at least. But so that's the middle, that's the top. I think let's do 2 pull downs of some kind and then finish with some kind of rowing and pull down superset so I can really finish off, well, just as pumped as possible. Pose down, get out of here. But this is going very well already. All right, with this set, I am not dying to go as heavy as I can possibly muster. I actually might go even a little lighter than my feeler rep, only 220. Because with all the fatigue from those last 2 sets of rows, I don't want to do a set like those first 2. You know, where I was talking about, oh, I just want a lot of tension in my lats and whatever else. No, with something like this, especially towards the end of the lift, if I can really squeeze every rep, at least for the first 10 when I'm strong, then burn out with partials, it does give me a better pump at the end of it. And just better overall kind of activation of fatigue. Ugh. Yeah. 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 Okay. So I am not just mindlessly pulling this thing down. I'm actually thinking about a specific cue, which actually helps me fucking feel my lats. Not on all pull downs, but with this slightly wider than shoulder width neutral grip one, if I try to pull my elbows backward, like if I lean back a little too much and try to pull them behind me, I end up getting a bit more like mid-trap, mid-back kind of squeezing action, but I'm trying to work my lats. So I'm actually almost imagining keeping my body a little bit more upright, not leaning back as much, and having my elbows almost pulling in front of me this way. I do feel my lats a bit more, but that's just because this is a slightly lighter squeezing set. If I were going a bit heavier, I might do it a little differently. Oh. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Let's make a drop set. Come on. Ooh. Ooh. Ah. Ooh. Oh, okay. All right. Time for some kind of superset. Pose down and scram. Did they do it for you? Yeah, this is my last one. All right. So this will be good. And I really do like kind of a more simple kind of setup like this with a row, because I don't need to go do a cable row. And frankly, well, I don't know if you know, it's kind of hard to explain. Right? 50 pounds on the cable, even though it's 50 pounds of force, doesn't feel like a 50-pound dumbbell, right? The weight doesn't move as fast, so it just feels more of a constant tension. But enough kind of explaining there. So plan here, probably, I don't know, 5 reps on one side, 5 on the other of light squeezing single arm pull downs. That's just more of a lat pre-exhauster kind of, pumpish sort of approach. Slap the stack on here, take a seat, and I should actually grab my straps, and then burn out with some upper back, mid back kind of focused rows. So at the end of this set, my lats are going to be on fire. I'm going to feel like I'm walking around like this because I got so much blood in the whole, rear section. Then we can find some cool lighting, bust out some lat spreads, and get excited for the leanness factor to continue to increase over these next few months. But no point talking about it anymore. Let's just make it happen. Left side first. Okay. Yeah, one more. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let's find some lighting. Back complete. There we go. Nice and centered in what I would say is the fucking freakiest lighting of this gym. Not opposed down to the gun down right here. And I'm sure many more will occur in the future. But what I'm extra excited for is 1-2 months out from right now, where regardless of whatever lift I just hit, getting the shirt off will reveal some more shoulder kind of striations. I mean, we've got a hint of it, right? I mean, we can see some kind of we can see some something, but it's covered up by a little pinchable outer layer, which I want to clear out. But let's run through a couple classics and get out of here. Oh, oh my gosh. All right. Oh, whew. Way trickier to hold a fucking back pose with a back pump than without. But let's get one more little Arnold. That's Graham. Oh. All right. Time to get the car. Oh my goodness. I just heard the scariest fucking story. Well, I didn't hear it, I just read it. Basically, the logic was there was this old rickety cabin in the woods, and a group of young lifters made their way through. Their car broke down, they got lost. They saw a light was on, so they wanted to come in for just for asylum to kind of find out where they were headed, get a little bit of group basing. So they knock on the door, they hear nothing. And they creak the door open. And you know what was inside? A cardio bike! Yeah, gotcha. Got you there, huh? That must have scared the shit out of fucking basically all of you. I know you're not doing your cardio. I can't understand why. Apart from the fact that it is a little bit of a time, it does take a little bit of time, but whatever. More gains for me. More gains for me. How about that? Maybe I should start gatekeeping cardio. Maybe I should start saying, guys, you don't even need to do any cardio. You're not going to notice any metabolism benefits. You're not going to notice any endurance benefits during your training. And then I just get to use all the cardio machines for myself. No, come on, I'd never do that. That's crazy talk. Cardio is going to be, it's going to be a long time staple of this fucking training routine. And especially dieting. I mean, we all know the gist. I'm not going to, let's not turn this into a cardio rant, though. That back day made me feel pretty good. So this is something I feel pretty strongly about, is your actual set by set hype and fucking excitement, right? And you got a couple of things you can do to play into that. Part of that is just focusing on kind of visualizing how you want your set to look. Being able to say, okay, this is getting pretty difficult, but I'm not just going to stop the set because it's starting to burn a little bit. Like, I want to push it to a point where the only reason I can't lift it anymore is purely because my muscles aren't firing how I want them to, right? I want the limiting factor to be to be just physically how strong I am, not just my, I guess you could say wussness, right? I mean, there's a lot of sets of, just a lot of sets of everything that get cut short across the country, and frankly, probably across the entire world, where the only reason that somebody stopped that set was because they said to themselves in their own mind, ooh, this is starting to hurt a little. Let's put the weights down. Not cool. Not fucking cool. Before anything else, before your technique, before your everything else, which, not to knock it, obviously that does play a big ass role in your training, but You've got to be able to bring it on a fucking set by set basis so that when you do a good set, it's even more fucking effective. You know? I mean, it's, I kind of like if you got two guys sitting in a fucking, they each have a tree to cut down. Same size, same strength, same everything. One guy does a very solid, well executed rep for all of his, or reps for all of his sets, right? That guy's got a sharp ass axe. The other guy is being a little brutish. He's not pulling his shoulders back. He's not trying to adjust anything. He's maybe not hitting every muscle in every way that he can. For chest, he only does bench. He doesn't do any flies. For biceps, he only does barbell curls. He's not breaking away in any other kind of whatever. I mean, guys are just a little bit more of a staler kind of training. His axe might be a little duller. But if that guy swings his axe twice as fucking hard, I still think it's going to achieve better results than the guy who just kind of babies it with a sharp one. Now, of course, it's obvious what situation would be best. Good reps, good muscle activation, complete stretch, complete squeeze, everything, combined with insane fucking intensity. But those are each very fucking important on their own. Don't, it's easy for guys to feel pretty good if they do a perfect set of, 30-pound dumbbell curls, but they left 10 reps in the tank, or 15 reps in the tank, like you're barely trying. I mean, what are we doing here, So that's where combining effort with skill, I feel, is really what I'm aiming for. Now, I think I've had the effort side down, and I'm adjusting my skill side over time, which is kind of I like that progression. The last thing I'd want to do is just be really freaking out about the skill of everything all the time and then backing off on the intensity, because I feel like intensity is a harder thing to grow through because you're going to get used to it. I mean, I see guys where when they were making gains, it wasn't because they were training like 3 times smarter. It wasn't because they were training with like absolutely perfect peak form here, and then now they're not making gains because they're training his. No, it's all fucking intensity. Because the guys who lift the hardest are the ones who are really into it the most, and they're going to be the guys to actually do everything outside of training to fucking improve their gains. Because if at a really kind of base, I even want to say primal level, not to steal that word from the Liver King, but at kind of a primal level with your training, if on a set-by-set basis, one of your number one concerns is just like how hard can I go physically, and that doesn't mean how heavy, right? That just means like how much effort you can put into each set on a set-by-set basis, then I think that guy's going to do way better because he's going to want to do all his sets hard, right? He's going to want to push himself as hard as he can, set by set by set by set. So if that's what he wants to do, then guess what? That guy is going to notice that if he rolls into the gym with jack shit for sleep, and if he rolls into the gym without hitting his meals or he didn't drink enough water, he's not going to feel very good. He's going to feel a little more tired. He's going to feel a bit more lethargic. Things aren't going to click as well. And it's just not going to be as fun to fucking lock it in, So that's where everything outside of the gym, I think, is what people should really start to lock into, right? I mean, when we think about locking in, usually it's a very short burst of like hype and you're watching a crazy ass edit or something like, oh, I want to go fucking nuts. You're watching the clips of everybody doing insane squats and barbell rows and flies and actual bodybuilding competitions, everything else. But the training part isn't necessarily where all the work is done. Of course it is, right? I want to have all my training sessions be fucking perfect, really going nuts. But if I wasn't really messing with the whole dieting side of things, if I wasn't doing any of my cardio or anything, if I was like barely prioritizing sleep and not drinking enough water, dude, my lifts would be shit. I'd have no fun. I'd feel bad. I'd be way more tender in all sorts of joints and everywhere else because my recovery would be fucking jacked. It's like, that's where I think the guys who want to kill it in the gym usually translates to the guys who want to kill it outside of the gym as well. Because those two things play into each other synergistically, So if you're thinking about what you should change with your routine, I would not recommend watching 3 hours of like how to do the best tricep movement of 2024 or what's going to be the greatest tricep workout of 2025 only $4.99 for unlimited access. That's not where the secret is, right? If you're actually locking it in with, well, now I'm just fucking repeating myself here, but the reason I'll end up talking about, sleep, diet, hydration, everything else is because those have the most impactful impact on your training results. The guy who's doing all that versus the guy who isn't, even if in the gym they're training just as hard, he's going to make better fucking gains. It's not always about, it's like you got the driver, right? That's you when you're working out, but you also got the pit crew, right? You got to take care of this fucking system, make sure it's all in proper working order so that guy can actually get behind the wheel and not be worried about how it's going to perform during the actual workout. And I can't stress enough the fucking fun part of training when you feel good, right? But it's a little easy. Well, not even little. It is easy for me to say that because my whole fucking days are basically related around the training now. That's kind of how the SAM schedule has been oriented. Which I'm crazy spoiled for it. It's fucking nuts. But that's where it is a give and take. If you've got a bit of a busier schedule, or well, yeah, I think I also kind of spoil myself. I'm not the most social character, right? I'm not what's the word? Not antisocial by any means, right? But I'm crazy enough where I put the gym ahead of a lot of other just, basically anything else in a way. So it's kind of easy for me to say, okay, I don't really want to go, hang out with these guys for 4 hours tonight. I'd rather go to sleep so I can work out. That's not, but that's more of a me thing where that's just not hard for me because I never had that real kind of itch. But if you've got the future in your mind and not purely the present, then, anybody who's in school for the first time, that's almost all the stories I hear. It's guys where, they'll talk about back when I was in school, I was partying way too fucking hard. Wasn't focused, fucking, later on down the line, it's always the negatives. It's like, oh, dude, fucking hell, man. I wasn't studying, I wasn't working out, I wasn't doing anything, I was just partying every night. And your somebody's life isn't suddenly more valuable in any way, but to you specifically, right? If you would look back on the last 3 years or 4 years or even just a couple of months, even that short of a time frame, if you look back at some of the free time that you had every day, I think we can all spare an hour and a half. Not everybody's not walking around here like Gary V, on a 24/7 grind where nothing else is going to impact it. We've all got some fucking free time. So let's say you've got an hour and a half for the next 3 months, or maybe you allocate an hour and a half. How are you going to spend it? Because usually it's a very, not even usually, I'd say 99 fucking percent of the time, it's a very comfortable sensation to be able to say, okay, I'm on track. I'm doing something which I want to do and continue to do because I'm getting better at it. I'm aiming for something later. That's just nice. Most kind of anxiety is not necessarily in an overworkload per se. It's more so in a procrastination kind of thing, right? So that's why, sometimes I'll talk about how you got to ease into working out a little bit, because that would make the most sense. If somebody's never worked out before, they do there would be a bit of a shock to go straight into a full week's worth of insane bodybuilding training, right? That would be you're gonna feel like you got hit by a bus, honestly, if you took somebody who's never worked out before with weights and gave them even just ran them through a hard push-pull legs for as much as they could do. But as much as there is value in easing into it and getting more used to it over time, it's like the fucking frog in the boiling pot of water experiment. If you warm it up slowly, it doesn't even notice. But there does have to be a driving force behind you to actually continue that progression. And I think a lot of the times that stops at about a year, maybe 2 years or so. And that's where the outside of the gym stuff comes into play. Because I know tons of guys where I've seen them forever, and they're not trying to be bodybuilders, right? They're not, that's not necessarily the end goal. But if you are working out consistently, we all want to be a little bit bigger. We all want to be a little bit stronger and make some kind of tangible progress with our training. But, 2 years of essentially newbie gains, you're not really hitting your protein goals. Somebody's not really tracking their macros or calories. They're not doing their cardio. The sleep might not be totally ideal, but they've been working out like 6 times a week, 5 times a week, consistently that whole time. They're going to make gains for a pretty strong period. Adding working out versus not working out at all is a pretty drastic fucking change. I can't understate that. But it's what's the word I'm thinking of here? It's like you could think of your first couple of months of training as trying to, break through a paper poster. It's gonna be pretty easy to get through there, right? And then a few months pass, it might feel like you're trying to bust through, some drywall, right? Well, all right. I got to start pushing myself a little harder, but I'm still making gains. I don't really mess with my diet too much, but after a year and a half, 2 years or so of just the training and no other support system behind it, that's when you're going to run into a wall with fucking studs. And if you make it through there, that's when you're going to run into a wall of fucking cinder blocks, man. You got to adjust your approach because muscle gets harder and harder to develop over time. It's going to be a slow, steady process, of course, but it does get more difficult. But the fun part, and the part that I like, is the fact that it's not insanely hard in the beginning, right? It gets more difficult over time, just like a fucking video game, right? You can beat the level 1 boss without being insane, but over time it gets trickier and trickier and trickier. So that's where you yourself have to get better and kind of adapt and adjust yourself to be able to handle the difficulties that are going to come later on. So all that's to say, drink more water, look into tracking your calories. I don't mean you have to do it all today, but just get curious about it. I can't overstate it, right? And then when you lift like it's your last fucking lift, man. I'd feel, oof. Now, apart from lifts where like I was, let's say for whatever reason I had like jack for sleep, like traveling or something else, apart from ones like that, I would feel bad if I rolled in, did a scrappy lift, and then just left. It just won't even fucking compute in my mind, man. It's like I drove out here, I got fucking pre-workout in my system, I'm walking into the gym, I got my gym outfit on, I know I've got a tank underneath of this pump cover that I want to reveal something at the end of. It's like, dude, I got no choice but to go hard. Anything else is almost like unfathomable, right? Now, that's barring injury. If you tweak your tricep, maybe don't roll into the gym trying to do your heaviest set of, plate-loaded tricep extensions you've ever done in your life, right? That is a little caveat there, right? So, intensity within a certain realm of reason, right? Obviously, you don't want to get more hurt than last time. But that's all I got to say there. So, time to go home, eat, sleep, repeat. And I am getting very excited for back veins to return. That's a little stepping stone. That's just amping me up to stay in my calorie deficit for. But until then, I'll just keep steadily peeling off body fat until out of nowhere I'm going to be able to say, holy crap, getting lean, gosh dang it. But that's all I got to say. Arms tomorrow. I know that'll be a solid lift. And then I better get a good night's rest for the leg day that will precede it, which I'm not certain what that will look like exactly, but I know we'll find out. But now I'm talking 2-3 lifts ahead. What am I even doing here? I'll see you tomorrow for arms.